presents Chocolate Yoddah Live. Hey folks, Chocolate Yoddah here, spelled Yoddah, because film studios are litigious. Today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. And if you saw me glance away just now, I had to check a paper. I basically never know what day it is. So I have to write it down so I can tell you what it is accurately. So I am confident that today is Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. Oh, and to the folks listening on Wisdom, let's see. Thank you for joining me. For anyone who wants to see my beautiful face, I'm also on YouTube Live right now. You can go to youtube.com/thepersistentrumor, actually /@thepersistentrumor. Click on the live tab or go to /streams, whatever works for you. But if you're just listening, hello and welcome. So today what's on my mind is actually different than what I had planned. So who cares what I had planned? Something more interesting came into my mind. I was on one of the podcasting groups. I think I'm on 3 podcasting groups on Facebook. And I was reading something today, and it really caught my attention. People promote themselves, they network. I use it basically to be a guest and find guests. So I was looking at one of the pages, and someone came on and talking about their life coaching. I think it was a guy, but I don't remember. But it sounded like a guy because he said, "I help Christian men give up pornography so they can blah, 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 lead a wholesome life," or whatever. I don't know. And I thought, well, that's not a coach, because a coach doesn't invent problems for you. A coach doesn't decide ahead of time that something that you're engaged in is a problem. And pornography is not inherently a problem. It's really, really popular. And of course, that's not the only measurement. If it were, McDonald's would be the best food on the planet. And clearly it is not. I'm not even sure it's food. And there ends my opportunity to get McDonald's as a sponsor. Oh, well. But, porn is extremely popular. It's the number one moneymaker on the interwebs for a reason. Apparently, people like to watch other people having sex. Surprise, surprise. Now, as a coach, if you decide automatically that someone watching porn is doing something wrong or harming themselves, that's a faulty presupposition. You can't just decide that, right? And, like these people that say masturbation is wrong. What do you mean? If God didn't want me to masturbate, he wouldn't make my arms long enough to reach my naughty bits. You know who wasn't supposed to masturbate? T-Rex. I mean, come on, But that got my attention and started me thinking about coaching. I don't talk about my coaching very often or at any kind of length if I mention it. I have been coaching people for over 30 years now. It's not the main focus of my life. It's not what I focus on to make money. I wouldn't mind making money at coaching, but I've never really pushed it very hard. It's my pleasure. It's my passion. It's something that I love to do. I love to inspire people. I love to help people whenever I can. But I recognize that it's a completely unregulated industry. I won't ever refer to myself as a life coach. And to all you people out there that do, sorry if this stings, but I think that's absurd. I think it's absolutely ridiculous to refer to yourself as a life coach. What could you possibly mean by that? You figured out life? Is that what you're telling me? You know life? I've been to doctors who smoke cigarettes. I met a therapist who was twice as fat as I am, right? I know a lot about nutrition. I don't ever talk about nutrition advice because I'm fat. That automatically, you know, rules me out as someone who should talk about nutrition. Now, that's not literal. Again, I have a head full of knowledge, but my behavior does not substantiate the knowledge that I have. So I don't bother offering it because you'd be crazy to take nutritional advice from me. And, when I met that fat therapist, I thought, because I'm talking about circus fat, I'm talking about extremely morbidly obese. Okay. Not even like questionable, not even like some people do that to me. Oh, you're not fat. Oh, shut up. Whatever. This guy, there was no question about it. He was literally twice my size. Okay. And not twice my height. Okay. So, to me, it's like, yeah, dude, you're not doing a good job at managing things. So I think you've sort of knocked yourself out of contention to try to tell me how to live my life. Right. And, when it comes to the practical aspects of coaching, as I mentioned earlier, it's completely unregulated. Like if people say, oh, I have a license to coach, that sounds the same to me as someone who would say, I have a license to wrangle unicorns. It's imaginary. Like, who cares? There's no governing body. There's no standards. There are no rules, regulations, nothing. Nothing. So enjoy your license to coach for whatever the fuck that's worth, you know? But for me, it's like, I know what I'm good at, right? In 1987, I started in personal development, right? And through circumstance, met up with this group of people a year later who were very dedicated to their own self-development. And they were dedicated to helping each other out through it because it was a huge undertaking. The goal was to change everything that I knew about life, throw out all the old crap that wasn't working for me, and replace it with new stuff that was productive and healthy. So yeah, that's essentially everything, right? And even with that, even with doing that for the last almost 36 years, this September, we're in June right now, so it's 35 years, 9 months away, right? And even with that, even with all that, I would never call myself a life coach. I know one thing very well, and that is how to manage emotions, how to manage my emotions, how I think about things, why I think about things the way I do. Have you ever wondered how you form a belief system? Ever? Is that, when you say I love steak, are you sure? Or is that just something you've been eating your whole life? I say that because that's the response people give me when they ask me if I'm a vegetarian, because I never volunteered this information, but people ask me once in a while, I guess based on my food order, oh, are you a vegetarian? And I'll say yes. And then, oh, I love steak. I can never give up steak. I love it. How do you know? You might love it. I'm not saying you don't, but how do you know? Where did that come from? Where did I'm a smart person come from? Where did I'm a stupid person come from? Where did I can't trust women come from? How do you form a belief system? It's kind of simple, but it can be very complex. And more complex is changing a belief system, right? Managing your emotions. Those are difficult things to do. And we know that they're difficult because all the pills that they're trying to sell you, the pharmaceutical industry, right? They're trying to sell you all sorts of pills to help you manage your emotions because they are convinced you can't do it alone. Never mind the side effects. Never mind that you'll go from depression to obsessing about suicide, but hey, at least you're not depressed. How is that an acceptable side effect? Oof. But that's another very, very long story about pharmaceuticals in America. What we saw during the lockdown or the pandemic, COVID 2019, right? What happened to people when they got locked down? They found out they hated their family, they hated their spouse, they found out that they couldn't be alone. And isolation is a tough one. It's a tough one. That's why solitary confinement is a torture. It's because being alone is hard for people. I get it. I get that that's hard. Wow, I also get that I've been talking this whole time and I haven't had my mic on. That's funny. I've had my wisdom mic on, but I didn't have the mic on for the podcast. Well, that's pretty funny. Well, luckily I can re-edit this and you can hear the first few minutes of it. Well, now if you're watching YouTube Live, you're finally hearing. And I got to tell you, the first few minutes was absolutely brilliant, but I'll edit it and add the sound in that you didn't hear. Actually, I'll be able to do that. But anyway, that's what you call a rookie mistake. I did the first few minutes of this, and anyone watching on YouTube Live could not hear me. But hey, you folks on Wisdom, you could hear every brilliant word that I spoke. But as I said, I'll add in the sound in post, and I'll upload it so that people can catch what I was talking about. Anyway, back to coaching and back to personal development. I understand the need for a coach. There's no doubt in my mind that even people working at the highest levels of achievement need coaches. And, I don't want to rule out therapy. Therapy is a great thing. As a matter of fact, if someone comes to me, invariably, I will recommend therapy because I think therapy works. And I don't pretend to be a therapist. And you will probably, if you're seeking a coach, chances are you have some issues that are beyond the scope of coaching. And another thing that bothers me about all these coaches, and by the way, coaching exploded during the pandemic. A lot of people quit their jobs and they were drawn to the allure of, hey, make money coaching, right? And so you have a lot of unprepared people making a lot of promises that they can't possibly keep, and one of those things is, hey, I can help you with anything and I can make sure that you can achieve anything. That's just not realistic. All right. I know that the one thing that I can do, because I've done it for 30 years, is help people manage their emotions. I can help you understand your beliefs. I might be able to get some clarity on how you formed those beliefs initially, but that's not critical to me. It's interesting to figure out how you formed your belief, but or your beliefs rather, but it's not absolutely necessary. What's necessary is understanding whether your beliefs are helping you or they're hindering you. Right? If they're hindering you, then you have to figure out how to change them. And you can't just stop doing something, when it comes to your belief, you can't just say, I'm not going to believe this anymore. You have to replace it with something else. It's that saying that nature abhors a vacuum. There are no vacuums in nature. And the same works for your mind. You can't just say, I'm going to stop this thing. It's really, what am I going to start to replace this thing? So yes, get rid of your negative beliefs, but you have to replace them with positive beliefs. Otherwise, you're operating in a vacuum and it just doesn't work. And chances are, when the going gets tough, if you don't have a new belief system to operate under, you're going back to the old one, right? That's why people who quit smoking very often go back, because they haven't replaced it with anything. They haven't figured out, why do I smoke? How do I stop smoking? And what do I replace smoking with? For some people, it's toothpicks, because they know that part of the pleasure that they have in smoking is something in their mouth. In extremes, they call that an oral fixation, but it's not necessarily that. It just might be something pleasant. You're in the habit of having a cigarette in your mouth, and you might want to put a toothpick or a licorice root or whatever as a replacement for that, so you're not leaving a vacuum. Because if that habit kicks up again and you haven't replaced it with anything, it would be easy for you to go back, right? So that's the real work, right? It's not just, hey, let's make a goal for you and I'll walk you through it and achieve it. I mean, look, the bare bones of coaching makes sense in terms of, hey, you've enlisted a partner, and you're going to decide what tasks you're going to accomplish with that partner. And then every week or 2 or 3 or a month, whatever interval you're on, you're going to report back to the partner what you did, what you failed to do, and talk about that, and then make a new plan and go at it again. That process, I think, is very valuable. So the mere act of hiring a coach can very often yield results, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to address the most entrenched aspects of your personality, or the parts of your belief system that you're clinging on to for emotional support, right? It's not that simple. It's not that easy, right? So again, be wary. Be wary of the life coach, or even worse, the dating coach. I don't even understand that. Like, you're a dating coach? I mean, I think dating's easy, but that notwithstanding, I get that some people have challenges with it, but it's like, if you start with, hey, buy chocolates and flowers, it's like you're starting at level 9 of a 10-step process. If the goal is having a relationship and you go to a dating coach, you're starting on step 9. Step 10 is the relationship. Step 9 is dating. Where are the first 8? Are you addressing yourself? Do you know what kind of relationship you're suited for? Are you suited for relationships at all? Maybe the reason that you're not in a relationship is because right now you're not worthy of being in a relationship. And I know that's judgmental, but maybe you're not equipped to be in a relationship. Maybe there's things that you have to develop as a person before you jump into dating and relationships. Maybe. I don't claim to know all the answers, but I have some questions. Like, what is the point of a dating coach? I can think of fewer things more useless than that. And again, I know a lot of you, especially on the Wisdom app, you promote yourselves as dating coaches. Oh, well, I calls them as I sees them. And if you get hit by the shrapnel, it's not my intention, but I'm not going to back away from it either. It is what it is, folks. You got to beware of the snake oil salesman. There's a lot of them out there. I think I said all instead of oil. Suddenly I turned Southern. Got to change your tar, get new oil. But yeah, so coaching, and again, please remember there are no regulating bodies, there are no standards, there are no regulations. It's the Wild West. It's Deadwood. For those of you who remember American history, for those of you who don't, Deadwood was a lawless town. There were a handful of them in America where they weren't part of a state. They just sprang up and decided there's no laws here. And famously, HBO turned it into a series of the same name. And that's what coaching is. Coaching is the Wild West. It's lawless. There are no rules. There are no regulations. Anyone can call themselves a coach. Anyone. And a lot of people do. I remember having a one-on-one encounter with a guy who referred to himself as a coach. And I never asked him what he meant by that because I didn't care. Because, again, it's the same as, I heard unicorns. But we were talking about something, and in this case, we were talking about, men and women and dating and that kind of stuff. And I said, I can teach men certain things so that, they can approach any woman. If they have a certain mentality and if they understand the dynamic of men and women, then, they'll be able to approach anyone. And here's how he gave away the fact that he had no capability as a coach. He said, "Oh, you're going to tell them that they can approach Beyonce?" Yeah, because other men have, right? And, if you think that, you have to be at a certain level because Beyonce's at a certain level, I say you don't really understand human beings. Beyonce's just a woman. Jay-Z's just a guy. Yeah, you know their name because they're famous and they sold a lot of records and they made a lot of money, but they're just people. They're just human beings. I mean, look at Elizabeth Taylor's dating history. Look at J-Lo's dating history and marriage history, right? I think at a certain point, Elizabeth Taylor married like a truck driver, just a regular guy. I think J-Lo married one of her backup dancers. I'm pulling for her and Ben. They're meant to be together. Although based on her history, which of course people can defy their history, but if her history is consistent, you can time that marriage on an egg timer. I hope not. I hope they stay together till one or both of them die. What a great outcome. Till death do us part. But, he gave himself away as someone who did not qualify to be a coach because he imposed his limitations on the world. If you're a coach, that's not it. That's not the way to go about coaching. You don't decide that the person that you're talking to has the same limits that you've decided you have. And I didn't say the same limits you have. I said the same limits you've decided you have. And yes, that falls into the Shakespeare quote that I quote frequently because I believe it's true. And yes, are coaches abusing this idea? Yes, they are. But the quote is from Hamlet, and I believe it's Hamlet himself who says it. There is nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I believe there's a lot of truth in that. Does that mean that when people think something terrible is happening to them, that's not really happening? No, it's not what that means at all. But it means that after something terrible happens, the way you hold it in your mind is going to make a big difference. There are people that go through the same tragedies, but they don't come out the same. They don't reach the same conclusions. They don't make the same distinctions. They're not affected emotionally the same way because of those conclusions and distinctions. Okay, so we have the ultimate control over whether we think this thing that happened to us, which might inherently be terrible, what is that going to mean long term? How am I going to feel about that thing that happened to me as time goes on? We are in total control over that. One of the things I tell people when we discuss the idea of happiness is that the pursuit of happiness is useless, because happiness is a byproduct. It's a byproduct of the things you do, the people with whom you do them, and how you think about those things, right? So I focus on gratitude. I say, all of us, any of us, are in total control of whether we are grateful or not, because being grateful is just a choice. And anyone can make that choice. There's no barrier to making the choice to be grateful. And I believe you can't be happy unless you're grateful. I have met too many people that had what the world would consider everything and in abundance who were unhappy because they weren't grateful for those things. All they could think about is what they didn't have, and they were never grateful for what they had. And as a result, they were unhappy. So you have total control over that, right? And these are the things that a good coach will lead you to. You will be led to new understandings, understandings about yourself. Again, not absolutely necessary, but if we can, let's figure out how you form these beliefs, because sometimes that can be instructive. If you understand how you formed a belief, you can understand how flimsy a belief can be. And not all beliefs are flimsy, but some of them are. Some of them are based on nothing more than your imagination. This thing with religion, again, believe what you want to believe, but understand it is your imagination. And that doesn't need to deter you from anything. That doesn't mean you need to change your mind. But it's, I think, important to understand that. It's just your imagination running away with you in some cases. In some cases, it's your imagination leading you to do horrible things to people just because you imagine that's what you're supposed to do based on your religion. So you can change that. If you don't want to be that person anymore, you can change that. If you find that you struggle in relationships, you can't find happiness, you can't find fulfillment, you can't find a suitable partner, very often that starts with understanding who you are. I can tell you from my firsthand experience, the first few relationships I had in my life were absolute train wrecks because I had no standards. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what I wanted. When I began to get clarity about both of those things through my work in self-development, which by the way is a misnomer. There was not much self in the self-development. There were always other people involved. But through that process, I learned who I was. I learned what I wanted. I did a year of celibacy on purpose. I was never an incel. I mean, maybe for a couple hours at a time, but in an overarching way, I was never an incel. When I turned 26 and had come out of very challenging, very horrible relationships, I said, all right, I got to change this. And I can't just keep saying, these are crazy bitches coming into my life. I mean, they were, but I kept inviting them in. So that's what I had to address, because that's the part that I could control. So first I had to accept that the most common denominator in my relationships was me. And then I had to say, okay, what is it about me that's problematic? And by problematic, I mean interfering with my goal of having a healthy relationship. What am I doing? As my support group used to ask all the time, to sometimes infuriating effect, how did you get that to happen? Oh, when I first heard that question, I wanted to punch somebody. What do you mean, how did I get that to happen? It happened to me. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. It happened for sure, but you played a role in that. It's the first example they gave to help me understand this about how much my decision-making process is my responsibility is the example, easy for me to say, of walking down the street and having someone shoot you, right? Now, clearly, it wasn't your decision to get shot. That was the other person's decision to shoot you. But you have to take responsibility for what street you chose to walk down. Man, that's hardcore. But I believe that. I believe my life springs from my decision and my responsibility. And so once I applied that to the area of relationships, I was like, all right, I can't do anything about them. They are who they are. So now let's focus on me. And that's why I did a year of celibacy, to learn more about myself and to distance myself from the thing that was problematic, which was a relationship with a woman. And I was like, well, I can't be in one and work on one at the same time. Maybe that wasn't true, but it was true for me at the time when I was 26. Men in their 20s are generally useless, so I think I was spot on with that observation. So, springing from that started my road to personal development, to understanding how to change my beliefs, to understanding how to manage my emotions. That's what I'm best at. That's what I can help people at. Can I help every single person? I think so, but I might be wrong about that. Maybe there's someone that's too far gone. If someone has a chemical imbalance in their brain, nothing I can do about that. Nothing I can do about that. And I wouldn't even begin to pretend to. Okay? So these people like, Tom Cruise ranting on about, oh, yeah, this stuff is not real. I get part of what you're saying. Part of what Tom Cruise asserted in that famous interview with Matt Lauer was true. But part of it was a misunderstanding. Like any manufacturing system, sometimes you get a lemon off the lot, right? Billions and billions of people have been created, over roughly 150 billion in the history of mankind. And some of them came out of the assembly line broken. And I don't mean broken in a judgmental way. I just mean, susceptible to disease. And some of those diseases are mental diseases. Nothing that a coach can do for you when that happens. Nothing. And I wish coaches would stop pretending that they can help everybody with everything. So, again, I'll never call myself a life coach. I'll never call myself a dating coach. But I can help you understand yourself. And I think that's the best that a coach can offer you. Here's more about you. Let's learn about you. Let's focus on how you operate. And let's see if any part of that system is working against you. Let's see if any part of these decisions that you've made are unhealthy for you. That's what a good coach can do, in my opinion. Right? Anything beyond that? And one last point about when I coach someone, I want it to be a finite process. Okay, I know people can go to therapy for their whole life. And again, I'm not knocking it. I believe therapy works. And it would be self-serving for me to keep someone on for years and years and years. I don't want to do that. I don't know if I'm 100% right about this, but this is my strong feeling. I want you to get rid of me as soon as we possibly can. I want to get in, address your issues, address your challenges, make new distinctions, give you new tasks, give you new practices, maybe help you develop new belief systems, whatever it is, and then send you on your way. That could be months. The longest engagement I've ever had with anyone was a year. But, the shortest was 2 sessions. I made a distinction that was a huge breakthrough for the person that I was talking about in our evaluation, which was only 15 minutes long. This guy said something 3 times in the evaluation. And I said, I pulled an Inigo Montoya. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Right? And he went, oh, wow. And it was sort of like a major shift happened for this guy. We had one more session, and I told him, you don't need me anymore. And that was that. And I'm fine with that. My highest aspiration in life, aside from being a father, is being able to help people with their challenges. Okay, that's all I want. If I can inspire you, if I can help you, if I can help you make a distinction, if I can help you find a new belief system that replaces one that's not working for you, I love that. That lights me up. That's what I'm here for. That's what I'm hoping that this channel can do. And again, I don't know. I don't know if anyone will ever find anything I say useful. If you do, beautiful. That's what I want. That's my goal. Whether I achieve my goal or not, I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to keep doing what I do. But just be careful. When you're talking to coaches, listen very carefully to the language that they use. Listen for the overpromising. Listen for the very, very wide net. Again, my coaching is narrow. I focus on emotional management. I focus on making distinctions. I focus on belief systems. That's it. I don't promise that I can help everyone with everything. That is a ridiculous proposal. And be careful, because I see that in coaching all the time. I see coaching ads all the time. I see people on Facebook, because of the groups I'm in, talking about their coaching. It's mostly garbage. And there are a few people out there that, in my estimation, are on the right path. They're being honest about what they specialize in, and the language that they're using indicates to me and my monkey brain, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. This would be a worthy person. Because, by the way, I've used a coach. All right? I don't think I'd trust any coach that didn't get coaching. Just like therapists need therapists, doctors need doctors. That whole physician heal thyself thing, that applies broadly. I want to know that my coach has a coach, or at least has had coaching. Right? That's important. But, I think I've hit on all the main points that I wanted to hit on. Just be very wary. It's a buyer beware kind of thing. You got a lot of coaches making a lot of promises, and I know that they can't deliver on them. And I know people will spend a lot of money. Some of these coaches are charging outrageous. Like, I saw one coach that's basically charging as much as a college semester for 6 months of coaching. That's wild to me. And again, hey, it's good work if you can get it. Maybe that person has that kind of value that they're offering. And maybe that's my own limitation, that I don't feel that way. I'm not here to fleece anybody. I charge very reasonable fees. And I've done a lot of free coaching, which I probably shouldn't admit, but most of my coaching, quite honestly, has been free, because if I see someone is challenged, I'm not going to try to set up a coaching client. I want to help that person with their challenge. And sometimes only one session is all they need, or 2-3 conversations, something like that. But, it'd be nice if I made a living at coaching. I don't know if I ever will, but that would be great. Same with podcasting, would be great. But that's not my goal. My goal is to help. And I hope these ideas have helped you. That is it for now. Hope I've given you some food for thought. Peace, love, and granola. Talk to you soon.